Hi, Notre Dame fans. Welcome in. I'm Ashton Pollard from blueandgold.com here with my colleague Tyler Horka. And Notre Dame just finished fall camp heading into the 2022 season. They won't practice tomorrow, and then they will enter their typical game week protocol for the Ohio State game. They had a little bit of Al Golden called it like a mini game type of thing today, a scrimmage, whatever word you want to use. And then we were able to talk with Coach Golden and Tommy Rees. So the two coordinators, we did not get a chance to talk with Marcus Freeman, but obviously we still get a lot of good info from the two coordinators. So we will start there on the offensive side. Obviously, Tyler Buchner is the starting quarterback. That was announced a couple weeks ago, and Reese had a couple of things to say on that front, so I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, I asked him because when they named Tyler Buchner the starter, I guess it was 2 weeks to the day. I think it was 2 weeks ago Saturday. When they named him, they had that whole press conference. Marcus talked, then Tommy talked, and then Tyler talked. And when Tommy talked, it was ownership. He's owned this. He needs to own that. Ownership. I just point blank asked him, what does ownership look like for you when you're coaching a quarterback? And he said, if the running back lines up in the wrong spot, you tell him. If the wide receiver runs the wrong route, you tell him. If you notice this pressure from the defense because you watched your film and you know what these defenses are going to line up in, you tell the offense, like, hey, this is what I think is coming. This is what it's like Peyton Manning at the line of scrimmage type of stuff, right?
Omaha.
Omaha. Love Omaha, by the way. Great town. The name that Tommy mentioned was Tom Brady. Obviously, there's only one Tom Brady. But if you were to go to a Tampa Bay Bucks practice, or if you went to a New England Patriots practice for like the 2 decades that he was there, you'd probably notice Tom Brady doing a whole lot of coaching, probably just as much as Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's got the defense. Like obviously Matt Patricia was a really good offensive coordinator for New England, but if you're like naming 2 guys who were responsible for the New England Patriots being what they were, it was Bill Belichick, and with the offense, it was Tom Brady. So, and by the way, they're both TB12. That's a thing that's out there. People call Tyler Buchner TB12.
You heard it here first. Tyler Buchner is the next Tom Brady.
Again, not what I'm saying, but take the ownership like Tom Brady. You might not play like Tom Brady, but the least you can do is be a leader like Tom Brady. When you're not on the field, coach the guys up on the sideline. Those are some of the best clips that Tom Brady has out there, where he's like yelling at guys, banging his head in their face mask and stuff. I'm not saying Tyler Buchner's going to do that either. He's a very even-keel guy, but at least do some of that stuff where you're a leader. You're just a sophomore. There's guys who are probably 3 or 4 years older than you on this football team, but you're the guy. You're the starting quarterback. Tommy Rees wants Tyler Buchner to look like the starting quarterback, play like the starting quarterback, feel like the starting quarterback, and I think he's really coming around on that. We haven't even played a game yet.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that you kind of said it, even-keeled is how he is, but we don't get to see him in these scrimmages. Obviously, we'll get to see him on game day, but I firmly believe that he has the ability to kind of flip that switch and be that leader, even though when you talk to him, you'd have no idea that he's the quarterback at Notre Dame. So he will be handing off to a group of running backs that I personally feel have definitely come a long way in fall camp, and I'm very excited to see on next Saturday, a week from today. You said that Reese commented a lot on them as well, so what did you have to say on that, I guess, quartet, because Price is injured for the year?
Right, he was asked multiple questions, probably 3 or 4 questions about these guys, and rightfully so. You have Chris Tyree, Audric Estime, Logan Diggs. Those are your top 3. I don't know if we're going to see a whole lot of Jabron Payne in that environment at the Horseshoe, but with the 3 guys, I mentioned first, I think you have a lot of confidence in all of those guys. Tommy Rees does, for sure. You've got a guy in Chris Tyree who, as a true freshman, was like, Notre Dame fans were like, oh my God, this is the guy. When Kyron Williams is gone, this is going to be the guy. Last year kind of took away from that a little bit, but what he did in 2020, that you shouldn't forget that. That's still possible. If he stays healthy, he can be that guy. And then he's backed up by Audric Estime, who can do it all. It seems like he can do it all, and he can do it all at 227, 228 pounds, whatever he is. That's a scary sight for opposing defenses. And then kind of with Chris Tyree, you have Logan Diggs, who – look what he did in the final 5-6 games last year. Really came on strong while Tyree was injured with turf toe, but he has that shoulder thing, and then he doesn't get cleared for full contact until like a week ago, maybe. We've kind of forgotten what he looks like at full strength as well. So 3-headed monster. I'm going to start calling it a 3-headed monster. Audric Estime might as well be a 3-headed monster in and of himself. That's what he looks like. We just watched him walk right by us walking into the press conference. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude's like not even 6 feet tall, but
5'11", yeah.
He can make you feel like a very small human being, and he did. So Notre Dame running backs, Tommy Rees has tons of confidence in them. I think Notre Dame fans should too.
Yeah, and then kind of going off of that injury note on Diggs, we can talk about injury news, which we didn't get a lot of. Tyler asked about Jarrett Patterson, who is in a boot. He's out of the hard cast, but still in a boot, suffering from what Marcus Freeman called a foot sprain. Seems like a pretty severe foot sprain to us, even though we are not medical professionals. You can kind of elaborate more on what Rees had to say about that really quickly.
I'll tell you what he said. He said Marcus Freeman makes those decisions. I asked him, do you expect to have Jarrett Patterson at Ohio State? He says, Marcus Freeman makes those decisions. I don't answer those questions. And that was that. I did ask him what the offensive line would look like without Jarrett Patterson. He didn't even delve into that, but we kind of know it's probably Andrew Kristofic, maybe some Rocco Spindler. You have two really good backup guards right there. Losing Patterson hurts, but those next men up, if you will, are capable.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about that on our last video a little bit, that Kristofic would start pretty much everywhere else in the country right now, and he started last year, and it was in the second half of the season when they started to improve. I know there's a whole knock of they played worse defenses. That's fine, but still, I mean, it's a data point to add to the larger picture. I talked with Al Golden today. Didn't get a lot on the logistics in terms of like the second safety spot next to Brandon Joseph. There was a lot of we've been cycling guys in and out. He was asked specifically about the safety position cycling in and out, and he responded, we've been cycling in and out everywhere. So that is consistent with kind of his idea that you don't have positions per se on the defense, you have roles. Obviously, you're not going to have a 300-pound defensive tackle playing cornerback. That's not what he's trying to say, but he has his linebackers lined up all over the place. He has his corners, his safeties, they're all lining up in various spots. So, yeah, not a whole lot in terms of the depth chart. Otherwise, guys that he talked about, Ben Morrison, who we were able to talk with 2 days ago now, freshman, was not an early enrollee. He's really high on him, said that every time he goes into his office, Coach Mickens has both Benjamin Morrison and Jaden Mickey like banging down Mickens' door to come watch film. So those two young corners are really, really eager to learn. And that's, again, kind of a theme that's been happening all year with the defenses. Al Golden just says they're all so smart, they all want to learn. And he kept that theme going again today. Had that to say about the linebackers. Obviously, they're kind of the big four, Jack Kaiser, J.D. Bertrand, Bo Bauer, and Maris Leofau. He was asked about Maris Leofau because there was a little bit of a, I don't want to say like rumor, but Marcus Freeman kind of hinted that he might be a little bit limited coming off of that ankle fracture. I believe it was a compound ankle fracture.
Oh, last year's
Yes.
injury. Yeah.
Coming off of that, Marcus Freeman said he wasn't full go. I guess he was doing limited reps. Golden basically squashed that and said he's been fine. He's looking forward to seeing him. So do with that what you will. And we kind of learned that about Cam Hart the other day, who missed a little bit of practice. He's apparently full go. So not a lot of injury concerns, I would say, on the defensive side, which is good, especially considering what is to come next weekend. And we can kind of end there. And I can start with Golden, and I'm sure Rees was asked about it a little bit too. But Golden was asked kind of, what do you see out of the Ohio State wide receivers? And he said they're talented. Then he kind of paused and said, I don't mean to give you the lazy answer. They're so much more than that. They're well coached. They're hard workers. In addition to the elite talent that Brian Hartline, the wide receivers coach at Ohio State, has recruited in recent years, arguably better than any position in college football. And then he brought up to, speaking of three-headed monsters, your C.J. Stroud, your Travion Henderson, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba is kind of their top wideout, but they have a ton of talent. I don't want to knock the rest of them, just say Smith and Jigba. So he was like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. He's preparing his guys, and he likes that he has that veteran leadership so that the young guys can follow. They hopefully don't get caught up in the noise that's going to be at the Horseshoe. Inevitably, I'm sure that will happen to a certain extent, but it sounds like they've been preparing pretty well for it. I can stop there on the topic of Golden, and anything that Rees had to say specifically about Ohio State.
Yeah, he more so talked about the last points that you were making and just what Ohio Stadium is, the Horseshoe. Yeah. He said he went to a game there one time in his life. He was 10 years old, and he was just kind of there spectating, I guess. And what is he now? Just over 30?
I think he just turned 30, yeah.
So 20 years ago, he's like, yeah, I still remember what that was like. So not really a Michael Mayer type response and saying that it's just another stadium. He said, look, this is Notre Dame, Ohio State, two top 5 teams in the country, week 1. If that doesn't get your blood boiling, I don't know what does. These guys are all competitors. They know it's going to be loud, but that's probably number 17 on their list of things that they're thinking about. You know, they're thinking about Stroud and Henderson and Smith and Jigba and all those guys. So And Tommy Rees is just thinking about Notre Dame. At the end of the day, he said Jim Knowles, great defensive coordinator. He talked a lot about Jim Knowles coming over from Oklahoma State and says those guys disguise really well. He said they make you as an offensive coordinator really think about what you're doing every single play, because you mess up one time, you're facing 2nd and 14, and all of a sudden, you're punting the ball away to an offense on the other side. That's really, really good. So he's thinking about it tactically, and he's also thinking about the atmosphere and ambiance. I mean, we're 7 days away. At this point, you have to be thinking about everything, and it sounds like Tommy Rees he's already gone there in his mind. I know fall camp technically wrapped up today, but we saw it early on in the week when those scout team numbers came out. This Notre Dame team has been thinking about Ohio State for about a week now, and they got another week to think about them a little more. They're going to be prepared. Are they going to be good enough to beat that team? I don't think a whole lot of teams in the country are going to be good enough to beat that team. They're saying, if it's not Alabama, it's Ohio State. So you literally get, one of 2 best measuring sticks in the country that you can get in week 1. I think there's a little bit of excitement in that, but also you got to, think about it realistically, and can't expect to go in there and win. But if you do, you just knocked off one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Tyler, you brought up an interesting point on the topic of a Jim Knowles defense. Technically, Jim Knowles did not coach Oklahoma State last season, but that was his defense. So Tommy Rees has seen a Jim Knowles, at least Jim Knowles-esque defense within the last 9 months.
Yeah. The last game they played.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, last game they played. So that is an interesting storyline. Before we wrap up here, one quick personal note. This will be my final video with blueandgold.com as I have another opportunity. But we thank you for watching. It's been really fun to do these videos. It certainly helps me kind of put together everything that we just went through in these press conferences, where they're often rapid fire. We see 30 minutes of practice, and it's hard to piece it all together, but I think these videos have certainly helped me in that way, and I hope that you all have enjoyed them. So thank you for joining us, and next week is game week.